Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents An Ounce of Decorum by Ashleynicole, narrated by Elyce, Anthony, and Sean Crisden. 1. Noura. I hate being me. This was a thought that had been a constant companion since I was a teenager. Not a child, a teenager. I was ignorant as a child. I didn't know anything about life. I for sure wasn't being taught anything about life as a child. However, as soon as the word teen was attached to my age, the life lessons began. Nothing particularly drastic or traumatic happened. There were just things placed on my shoulders that I shouldn't have had to bear. Things that stayed on my shoulders until recently. I was still being pulled by these things, with their weight trying to force me to my knees so they could climb back onto me. But fortunately for me, my knees and my spine had gained some strength, and I was fighting not to get back down there. Now there was something else being thrown in my face almost daily that was making me despise my existence. Well, I didn't actually hate being me. I just didn't always like it. I'd worked super hard to get where I was, and nobody was going to take that from me. They were still throwing stones, though. There were times in my life where I felt there was a target on my back, just begging folks to take shots at me. And it seemed people were all too eager to take part. Not strangers either. No, strangers I can deal with. It was the ones closest to me who were taking the shots and hitting their marks dead on. Take, for example, my ex-fiancé, Duran. We met our senior year of college, and I thought we were going to spend the rest of our lives together. We were perfect for each other. Both chose similar occupations. Both came from super humble beginnings. While other kids were skating their way through school on mommy and daddy's dime, we were both working our asses off to stay eligible for competitive scholarships we went to school on. We made sense. After graduation, we managed to get jobs in the same city, moved in together. We're building a life together. Or so I thought. I'd started noticing a slight difference in our interactions in late winter. The sex had slowed down. Our weekly dates were dwindling down to monthly, if that. Arguments were popping up over the smallest things and being blown way out of proportion. To try and avoid these conflicts, I'd just work later. By the time I'd get home, he was already in bed, and then would still be in bed when I'd leave out for the next day. I figured we were just having a rough patch. By spring, things were kind of evening out. We still weren't going out or having sex, but the arguments had stopped. Then one day on my way to a meeting with this developer I was supposed to negotiate a new land deal for my firm with, I received a text message with just a picture and 3 words. Duran. She said yes. The picture was of a hand with a beautiful diamond engagement ring. A hand that wasn't mine. The next text I received after that was just as simple. Duran. It's over. It was accompanied by a picture of his empty closet. I'd pulled into the parking lot of the restaurant where my meeting was to take place and tried to call him maybe 50 times. I sent just as many text messages, but none of them were answered. My relationship of over 8 years was over, and I had no idea why. Needless to say, I was in no condition to take a meeting. I wasn't crying or anything. I was just angry. Super angry, livid. But I was a professional. This was my job, my livelihood, which I was really going to need if I wanted to be able to keep the lavish apartment I now had to pay full rent for. So I sucked up all my emotions up and bottled them to be dealt with later. Thankfully, my lunch date hadn't arrived, and I had a second to breathe. This Mason account would net me a nice commission if done right. Duran was not about to mess that up for me. As hard as I tried, I couldn't let it go, though. So when Khalil Mason finally materialized in front of me, apologizing for literally being 60 seconds late, he became the target for all of my rage, and it hadn't lessened in the 4 months we'd been corresponding. Poor thing. Now, after a few months of stalled negotiations, me and one of my colleagues, Diana, were at their office for a meeting to see where we were going with things. What the hell? There's 3 of them? I almost stumbled at the sight of 3 Masons waiting for us at the end of the hall with the same face. Not like they just resembled each other, but all were the same damn person. Each was impeccably dressed in clearly tailored suits. They were tall and well-built with beautiful peanut buttery skin. Stoic, for the most part, except for their intense hazel eyes, which all watched us approach with interest. "You didn't know that?" Her tone relayed her surprise. "Girl, everybody knows that. Who have you been dealing with? Karan, Caden, or Khalil?" I thought about it before answering. I don't have a clue. I've just been calling him Mr. Mason. "Noura, how have you guys been communicating and not using each other's names?" "I told you, I can barely stand him. We have short conversations and everything else comes through email. His email is kmason3. Well, I guess I did know. However, I don't know which one he is." "Well, I guess you need to be nice to them all then. If your animosity for this man messes up this deal, I'd love to see how you manage to stay employed. Mr. Lincoln wants this to happen, and now." Hence the reason she was at this meeting. I had an inkling that she was called in to report back when I got the email that she would be accompanying me to this meeting. We were friends, though. She wouldn't rat me out. "Ugh. You may not like it, but it's the way of the world," she snapped in a low voice. "Now fix your face. Gentlemen, how nice to see you." That little bite that she addressed me with was replaced with a whole cup of sugar. "Ladies," one of the 3 offered us both a warm smile and motioned for us to follow the other 2 into a small conference room with the big table big enough to seat 10 people. He motioned for us to take seats across from his silent brothers. Once we were all seated, he wasted no time getting down to business. "Miss Locke, right?" I nodded. "Caden," he said, thankfully offering his name. "We've been going back and forth over the figures you've sent over." "Okay, so it's not you. Which of the other 2 clones is it?" I wondered. I knew all I had to do was connect eyes with him to figure it out. But first, I had to pay attention to what Caden was saying, because animosity aside, this was my job, and would be a major deal for me. I zoned back in on, "Khalil isn't really happy with the numbers, and we're inclined to agree." I made sure to hold back on my hostility when I responded. "We've volleyed the numbers for weeks now, and our last conversation ended with us both agreeing on the figures that you have before you." "Oh, so he ran back to his brothers and changed his mind?" "Tuh." We've had time to do more research on the property, and this number seems excessive. He told me through his steepled hands that were covering the bottom half of his face. However, I reached out to Mr. Lincoln, and he's in agreement that maybe a visit to the property would help negotiations better. I've seen the property. We're aware of that. So Mr. Lincoln feels you're the best person to do a walkthrough with. We'd like to schedule it for as soon as possible, as stretching these negotiations is costing both companies profit. Understandable. The smile on my face was so fake and stiff, I was afraid it was going to fall off. As soon as I get back to my office, I'll look and see when we can leave. Thank you. His smile was warm and cute, which sucked, because that meant his brother's was too. We'd like this trip to happen sooner rather than later. Diana and I stood from the table with me refusing to look to the other two Masons. I couldn't believe I was going to have to go on a trip with this Khalil. I didn't want to go anywhere with him. I wanted this deal to be over so I could try and shake this shit. Somehow, he'd become some kind of totem for my anger and hurt. And as long as I was dealing with him, I was feeling it. I didn't want to feel it anymore. I wasn't going to bend to their will to lower the price on the property, but I was going to do what I had to do to facilitate this damn deal so I could get away from him.
Khalil. As soon as the door closed, one busted out laughing. She had no clue there were three of us, and she didn't even know which one you were. He turned his laughing eyes to me. Had no clue, Mira chuckled. She wanted to curse you out, though. She can't stand you, bro, damn. The bullshit is she's the one with the chip on her damn shoulder. I told y'all she's been nasty from jump. Yeah, well, suck it up for this trip, one, the oldest, ordered. I'll let you do the talking just like today. I didn't like the look that they shared. We're not going, Mira informed me like the idea was preposterous. This is your deal. You know I can't stand this woman and you want me to go on a trip with her? We don't get along, Karan. I leaned both hands on the table. The fuck are you missing? We're professionals, Khalil. Suck that shit up and make the deal happen. It was times like this where I wished we were still adolescents and could fight it out. We could fight, it just wouldn't make sense. This was my job. It was my turn. Boss the fuck up and use your position as leverage, dude. One told me absently as he read something on his phone. You're being too nice. Besides, as you know, this property is too damn valuable to miss. I was just going to have to set Noura straight. There was no way I was flying across the country to continue to be berated and talked to like I was a fool. Without another word, I hurried from the office, trying to catch her and Diana before they stepped on the elevator. Miss Locke, I called just as the doors opened. She turned to look over her shoulder. A word, I requested. She turned and said something to Diana, who nodded and stepped into the elevator and let the doors close. I could see her take a deep breath before facing me with steeled shoulders and tight lips. We were just in a meeting where other words were said. You didn't think it necessary to have this particular word then? I had to literally bite down on my tongue. Yeah, it was high time for this conversation. I too took a deep breath and pushed the door to my left open. If you could just step in here for a quick private word, please? I didn't miss the deep eye roll she lobbed my way as she preceded me into one of our other conference rooms. I gently shut the door behind us, taking a second to release the single button of my suit jacket, revealing the chocolate satin vest beneath. Felt like I needed the full breadth of my torso for this conversation. One thing we'd made sure of were that the walls of our offices weren't thin and private conversations couldn't be heard through the doors. I'd been holding off having this particular conversation for months, but I couldn't hold out any longer. I would start with some tact, though. Ms. Locke, I'm not sure what our issue is, but at this point it's starting to affect the business. We don't have an issue, she replied, sighing audibly. I said I would go on this ridiculous trip with you to see a property that I've already seen, which is pulling me away from other important work. Her head rocked back and forth mockingly as she spoke. Now you're standing here wasting my time about some imaginary issue. I'm tired of your fucking attitude, I snapped. How about that? You've been nasty, dismissive, and disrespectful from the second we met, and you need to get over it. I'm done cowering to you. I've given you chance after chance to fix your goddamn disposition, and now I'm telling you to fix it. Excuse me? She stepped back with one foot, looking me over as if she'd never seen me. No, I barked, causing her to jump a little. I've been excusing you. I don't work for you. I don't work for anybody. I own this company. If you can't respect that, I'll go over your head to find somebody who can and make sure you find yourself unemployed in the process. This isn't a game. This isn't a joke. I'm not a punching bag for you to take your personal issues out on. Go home. Take off your pissy little angsty teenage panties, put on your big girl drawers, and grow the fuck up. I'll see you in New York. I walked out of the room without giving her a chance for rebuttal. She didn't need one. I meant what I said. I didn't have to keep dealing with her shit. I wouldn't keep dealing with her shit, no matter how fucking cute she was. Instead of going back to finish talking to my brothers, I headed for my own office. Those assholes hadn't been any help since the beginning. They'd been down on the first floor of the building we all lived in, which had been converted into a communal area, when I got home that first night after meeting her. Yo, this broad is not going to be easy to work with, I lamented as I slammed a glass down on the countertop, pulling a bottle of brandy from the liquor shelf. Broad, G? Mira asked, looking over to me with a smirk. Trying not to call her the other B word. Trying super hard. I huffed as I dropped down heavy on the couch, stretching my legs out in front of me. That's what the fuck she acted like, a whole fucking chip on her shoulders for no reason. Were you being goofy? One asked. He was set up at the center island, flipping through a file and making notes. Fuck you. Fair question, he tossed back. How is that fair? I questioned, sitting forward and glaring at him. These niggas really got on my nerves sometimes. Because you're goofy as fuck, Khalil, Mira answered. No, dumbasses, I was being professional, as I always am in a professional setting, I snapped before taking down the shot I'd poured. Fucktards. This was one of the reasons we fought so much as kids. Well, besides the fact that we all constantly lied on each other. I don't know what possessed me to go into business with these two assholes. Now I had to not only deal with them, but I had to fly across the country and spend an extended amount of time with this vicious-ass woman. Some bullshit.
Noura. So, I'm not going to say that I was aroused, but I'm not going to say I wasn't. The need for a change of underwear and my painfully erect nipples answered a question that nobody asked. As bad as I wanted to bark right back at him, he was right. I wasn't the boss. And regardless of how good I was at my job, if Mr. Lincoln got wind of my attitude towards Khalil, he would no doubt fire me. I needed to rein it in, and his outburst did just that. The anger could be dealt with, but the throbbing clit was another story entirely. That was going to pose a totally new problem. Like, it was killing me all of a sudden. And I'd felt nothing before this. Fortunately, this was an end-of-a-day meeting, so I didn't have to go back to the office. Nope. I headed home, making a pit stop at my favorite wine shop. Liquor didn't make me horny like it apparently did for the rest of the world. It had the opposite effect. By the time I got home, I felt like I was on fire. For Khalil Mason, the man whose first name I hadn't even known when I woke up that morning. It was preposterous. At home, I kicked out of my heels and poured myself a very hefty glass of wine, taking it into my office with me to check my end-of-day emails. The most pressing was one from my boss, Mr. Lincoln. He was praising my work so far with the Mason deal, but I could read between the lines. He was ready for it to be done as well. He made sure to tell me I needed to go back to the Masons with the travel date expeditiously. "You been talking to T.I.?" I wondered out loud. I scanned through a couple of less important emails before finally going to my schedule. I pushed a big puff of air out as I scanned it, irritated with how open it was. Wished I had a few things I couldn't push so I could make them wait. "Noura, stop," I groaned, scrubbing my hands through my short curls. Grow up. Get this shit done. I shook off that bit of childishness and opened a new email to compose to Khalil. I sent him my schedule, letting him know that we could be there as early as the coming weekend if it worked with his schedule. His response was damn near instantaneous, letting me know that worked for him as well. Good, I mumbled. My final email was letting him know to wait for an email from my assistant with travel info and the best way to get there. How the hell did I miss your name? I scrolled down the bottom of the last email, and right there in his signature was his full name. I hummed and shrugged as I closed the lid of my laptop, telling myself to leave work alone. It wasn't work that was bothering me, though. It was him. To date, he'd literally just dealt with every little nasty thing I'd done or said, usually without even batting an eye. He would just push on with his agenda and end the conversation. Not today, though. His shoulders looked to broaden as he stood there, imposing, going off on me. I had to admit, it caught me off guard. I mean, he cursed at me. Like, cursed. My initial reaction was to return the favor, but I knew I couldn't. On my ride down to the parking garage in the elevator, I'd even had to laugh. I'd clearly been pushing him and had pushed a little too far, forcing him to push back. Probably wasn't smart to continue to do so. I did like my job, and I didn't want to lose it. With luck, this trip could be one of the last times we had to talk to each other. Once an agreed-upon offer was made, the attorneys would step in, and I would move on to the next thing, i.e., something other than Khalil Mason.
2. Khalil. The one good thing about having to go to New York for this trip was that I left home early and stopped in Connecticut to see my family. If I had to deal with Noura's funky-ass attitude for the next couple of days, I was going to soak up some good vibes from my family first. Yeah, she'd agreed to my ultimatum, but that didn't mean she was going to be pleasant. She may not be as hostile as she'd been acting, but the damn girl wasn't about to fall in love with me and become my best friend. I'd called ahead to let my grandmother know I was coming. I had to fight not to break out in a praise dance when I opened the front door and smelled the food. Grandma's cooking was about to put me in a good-ass mood. "Grandma, I'm here," I called as I dropped my bag by the front door, gazing around the area. If there was one place in the world that signified home to me, it was here. Me and my brothers grew up across the country with our parents, but home was where the cousins were, and they typically were all at Laverne Renee's. I couldn't even say nothing had changed since we were kids, because that would have been a bold-faced lie. With so many grandchildren in and out of her house, things were bound to get broken and replaced. It seemed like she was getting a new couch set every year because they couldn't stand up to our abuse. And with the new couch set came new lamps and rugs and art. Sometimes the house would get repainted, too. "Hey, Lee," she gushed as she hurried in, her arms up to accept me for a hug, which I eagerly stepped into. "Hey, Grandma, how are you?" She hugged me tight to her chest, leaning up to press a kiss to my cheek.
"I'm good. How was your flight?"
"Painless," I told her as I finally stepped from her embrace. I'd be smelling like her Marc Jacobs Daisy perfume for the rest of the day.
"Well, that's good. Come on in and eat. I tried to time the biscuits just right."
I looked up to the ceiling, thanking God for his favor as I trailed her into the bright kitchen. I didn't care if she didn't make anything else and just sat 75 of those biscuits in front of me. I was good with that. That wasn't the case, though. A plate heavy laden with sliced ham, macaroni and cheese, cabbage, and sweet potatoes was dropped in front of me. She finished me off with 2 biscuits and a glass of lemonade. "Thank you."
"No problem, baby."
The kitchen was another room that was constantly transitioning. Where the furnishing changed often in the living room, it was the actual structure of the kitchen that had changed since we were kids. They'd had to build onto it quite a few times to accommodate all of us. "You're not eating?" I paused with my biscuit halfway to my lips.
"No, you know I make this stuff for you kids."
She shook her head as she wiped the counter down, her focus going out the window over the sink for a brief second.
"I'll have me a salad later. Gotta keep this girlish figure."
I chuckled. "I hear you." I waited until she left out to pull my phone out and snap a picture of myself with the full pan of biscuits and sent it to my brothers in the chat. 1. Fuck you. Mirror. Fuck you. Mirror. I hope you choke on it. I laughed as I slid the phone back into my pocket. I knew the picture would piss them off. That's what they got for not stepping in to handle this shit. Noura wasn't a difficult client, she just couldn't stand my ass. She'd been perfectly professional during the meeting with the three of us. I knew that was because she hadn't known which one was me. One of them could easily take over and the deal would be done. The fuckers refused, though. Whatever. So here I was, stuffing my face with Grandma's food, not worrying about salty females or brokering property deals. It really did suck that she acted so ugly because she was fine. Finer than fine. She wasn't all that tall, but long legs gave the illusion of her being taller than she was. She had to have run track at some point in her life because her legs were crazy. She was a fine mahogany with big almond-shaped eyes. She had one of those short haircuts that tapered on the sides with the top longer. The longer hair stayed in these glossy curls that seemed to defy gravity. She was bad. There was something about her that just made the word regal come to mind. She carried herself very well and dressed even better. Too bad she was a banshee. "Yo, Laverne Renee!" A familiar voice called after the front door opened and closed.
Oh, shit, when did you get here? Landon Mason, curse in my house one more time and my foot will be in your tall ass.
Grandma snapped as she entered the room. I lifted from the table to bump shoulders with my cousin, Blink, trying to hide my laugh.
Sorry.
He made a face as we hugged.
What up, yo?
Chillin', I told him as I went back to my food.
It's Lee, before you ask him.
Grandma supplied as she went about fixing another plate. She knew us, didn't even have to ask if he was hungry.
I was damn sure about to ask.
He chuckled as he took the seat to my right. Grandma's hand connected with the back of his head quicker than I would have thought she could move.
Sorry.
He clenched his teeth and squeezed his eyes shut for a quick second. I laughed as I went back to my plate. She placed the full plate in front of him and took the seat opposite me.
So, Lee, you're up here for some deal or something?
It was always funny to look at her and see so much of me. It's just uncanny how we all looked like her clones. My cousin Taylor was damn near her twin, if it wasn't for the gray hair. Her genes were strong as fuck. Yeah, we'd been trying to buy this property in upstate New York for months. When we started researching, it looked like an open and shut deal that would be beneficial to both parties. Still feel that way, but the rep the company has working with us has it out for me. She's being difficult just to be difficult.
Did something happen between you two?
No. Literally from the second I met her, she's been nasty. We made plans through email initially, and she seemed fine. Then we met for lunch, and it's just been in a downward spiral ever since. I finally kind of went off on her the other day and threatened to go to her boss if she didn't fix her attitude. That's not even me. I placed both hands in the center of my chest for a quick second before taking my fork back up. You know, I can generally deal with anybody, but this situation with her seems almost personal. Like I specifically did something to her.
Kill her with kindness, baby.
We all looked up at the sound of the front door opening.
Oh, shit, oot!
My cousin Roderick exclaimed as he saw me.
What up, yo?
I stood and hugged him and then Travis, who'd come in with him.
Hey, Grandma.
Rod hugged her, followed by Travis. See? Travis motioned to the stove. I told you I can feel when she cooks.
Clearly.
Rod was at the sink washing his hands.
Y'all sit on down. I got your plates.
She didn't have to tell them twice. Within minutes, the four of us were elbow deep in our plates. Grandma had gone to the living room. A loud crack of thunder practically had the entire house shaking, just as the sky opened up. I'd just been there for a party Rod had thrown a month before, and it was still pretty warm then. Now it was fucking cold. I was glad I'd decided to stay at Grandma's that night so I wouldn't have to drive in the rain. How long you here? Trav asked as he licked his thumb and picked up another piece of ham. Tomorrow afternoon, got a flight to upstate New York to see the property.
I assume old girl will be there?
Blink asked as he reached behind him for another biscuit, sucking his teeth when Rod elbowed him, telling him to grab another. Yep.
What kind of property is it?
He faked like he was going to lob it at Rod before handing it to him. A hotel, kind of far out there.
Like that hotel in The Shining?
Pretty much. It's almost like the one we went to for the reunion. A bigger property with smaller little cabins that will probably turn into luxury suites or something. I shrugged. We'll actually be staying on the property. The main structure is closed, but I guess the company fixed up a couple of the cabins to show us their true potential. I'll go up and survey the land and the area.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?